like another bias, for example, I'll just give you another example.
Sure.
So there's a bias called contrast errors. So what it is Dan Ariely is an amazing writer. He's also a psychologist. He teaches at Duke, but he has a double PhD. He used to be a professor at MIT. So he would do all these social psychology experiments. And the best, before we move on, the best book that I recommend that he wrote is called Predictably Irrational. It was a New York Times bestseller, really amazing book. So anyways, one of his studies, he shows that people think in a relativistic manner rather than an objective manner. And he uses an example. So if you go into a bar by yourself and you're looking to meet somebody or get a phone number, are you better off going in by yourself or going with somebody else, like a wingman or a wingwoman? So the answer to the study that he performed, was that you're better off going in with a wingman or a wingwoman. However, you're only better off if they're worse looking than you. So if you're better looking than them, then you're more likely to get numbers rather than going in by yourself. And the reason is because people don't view you in a tunnel. They view you more favorably if you're standing next to somebody who's less attractive than you. Or if you're very tall and you're standing next to somebody very short, you might think that, oh, people are objective. They'll see me as 6 feet regardless, but it's not true. Studies have shown that if you're standing next to somebody short, you look taller than 6 feet, as opposed to if you're standing by yourself. So that would be like a common bias that people have that exists in humanity, that we think we lie to ourselves and think that we're completely objective and that I can view your height regardless of whether. So I usually use an example from the movie Twins, where Arnold Schwarzenegger was standing next to Danny DeVito. So they're like polar opposites, and the movie's all about how they were twins separated at birth. But the point is that if you look at Arnold next to Danny, he looks like way more powerful and Danny looks shorter. But if you look at them on their own, they don't look the same way in our minds. We don't judge them the same way. So that's a common bias that exists in humanity as a whole. It's not limited to like certain ethnicities. Everybody has that to some extent. We compare ourselves. It's hard for us to be objective and look at people in a tunnel. So that would be an example of a bias. And I use that in my Bedside Manner webinar about how important it is to have a consistent clinician, for example, because your patients are always comparing you to the other clinician. Right. And if the other clinician is better than you, is a lot better than you, you're going to look a lot worse. If they're a lot worse than you, then you're going to look a lot better. You probably want somebody who's somewhat similar to you. And I know that it's hard to find, but let's say you're on vacation and you're in your office. Your office should try to find somebody, and you work for an office, your office should try to find somebody who's similar to you in their approach to patient care. You don't want to get somebody who's like that much better, because then when you come back from vacation, they're like, why do I need you? I want the other person. You don't want to get somebody that's that much worse because it looks bad for your company. So try to find people who are very similar in their approach. And there's always groupings of people in terms of their approach. That's what I found. So that would be an example of how you can use the bias to prevent, an error, for example, to prevent a patient dissatisfied with their care.
So more of the story is find an ugly friend, so that way you can look more attractive.
The joke in the book is that he says, don't tell them that they're less attractive to you, then just take them. Yeah.